Welcome to Series 40, everyone. We hope you had a good couple of weeks off, but we are back. The way you wrote that, Ryan, makes it sound like we're back to ruin your good couple. Like, you had a nice couple of weeks off, but here we are. We've got a fantastic series with Neal Powell returning after 39 series to discuss a game that he loves, Phoenix Dawn Command. But before all of that, as usual, announcements.
First up, Chimera is still up for sale on the itch page. If you enjoyed the last series, definitely check it out at play.chimera.games. But also my streamed campaign, A Tale of Twinkle and Awe, has its finale lined up to stream live this Friday at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. We should be able to finish in a couple of hours, but likely it'll go a little long, but we really hope you'll all be able to join us for the fun. Currently, our heroes just finished learning some very surprising stuff from the spirit of the world they live on, and the evil capitalists are in hot pursuit to steal the magic that spirit possesses. So I'm really excited to see how it pans out.
Is there a page on Twitch, or do you have a YouTube page where people could catch up if they haven't before?
Absolutely. You could go to twitch.chimera.games and actually see the entire backlog if you so chose.
Awesome. Then people can catch up in case they've missed it and they want to watch the finale live.
The time is now.
Or is it, as we were just discussing before we started this recording?
The
time might be later.
It might be later. The finale will also be there, but you can experience it live if you so choose.
Another announcement is that we are in the final few hours of the Are The Dungeon Kickstarter. If you are listening on the day that this episode comes out, you can head over to the Kickstarter. You can smash the pledge button or gently just boop it, whatever. It's up to you. You can get yourself a copy. It is a fantastic game. I'm very, very excited about it. If you've already pledged and haven't checked back in a while, they did unlock the physical tarot deck goal. So you can change your pledge level, upgrade that, and get a physical copy of the tarot deck that Dan and Reedy is designing for this specific game. I'm really excited to get my physical copy of it. I'm so stoked.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it's really cool. Another one that we want to talk about is Courier's Call Season 2 Kickstarter is going strong right now. They are in the last few days as of the release of this episode. They've actually smashed past all of their stretch goals already. And so it's really a great time to jump in and get in on the action. Season 1 was a blast. Season 2 sounds like it's going to be phenomenal. It's going to actually include an Audrin prom.
I'm so excited.
Like, how could you not love that?
I was trying to explain to the kids, because Nate's been asking me when the Kickstarter's coming. So we backed the Kickstarter and I was like, Nate, we did it. And then I was like, oh, we're so close to Audrin prom. And he's like, I don't know what prom is.
Oh, no.
So then I had to explain prom. So I think I might be more excited for Audrin prom than he is, but that doesn't matter. He'll be excited about the rest of it. And this thing can be for me. It's for adults too.
It's for adults too. It's true.
I think that is everything for now. We hope you enjoy Phoenix Dawn Command. We recorded this actually before our Chimera series, so it's been a while since we've even experienced this ourselves, but I remember it being so much fun, and we can't wait for you to experience it right now. As usual, you can stay tuned after the show for our call to action, but for now, please enjoy the episode.
Welcome to Character Creation Cast, a show where we discuss and create characters, the best part of role-playing games, with guests using their favorite systems. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan, and this episode, my co-host Amelia and I are excited to welcome back Neal Powell, co-host of DMNastics and Whelmed, the Young Justice Files, to discuss Phoenix Dawn Command, a card-based RPG designed by Keith Baker and Dan Garrison.
Neal, welcome to Character Creation Cast. You're back. We're excited to have you. Yes, you made it.
I'm very excited. It's been 40, so because I was here for the first one, so yeah. I'm very, very happy to be back, especially because we're talking about Phoenix Dawn Command.
Absolutely.
Yes, I'm really excited about this. It's such a fun game. It's been quite a while since you were on, all the way back in Series 1 when we were just baby podcasters. Do you want to remind everybody what you're up to, where they can find you, all that kind of stuff?
Definitely, yeah. So I still talk about D&D 5th edition. Anymore, it's just D&D in general. But if you go to your podcatcher of choice, which I like saying this everywhere I can, in my mind, that's an entity. Like it's an actual podcatcher, like with a net, just going out there and catching them for me. But if you go, you can look up Dungeon Master's Block, and you'll hear my voice there, or DMNastics, where you can hear Celeste Konowich and I have practical ideas on how to just work out those mental muscles. And of course, Whelmed, the Young Justice Files, we're starting to ramp that back up after a short hiatus, and we have a lot of really interesting guests on the way for that. Mm-hmm. I also did a Kickstarter, I guess, since last time, called the Ultimate Guide to Hair, a 5th edition supplement to Die For. Yeah. And so that's actually fulfilled. And if you really wanted it, you could go to DriveThruRPG, where you could get the PDF, and we're trying to get the physical copy approved for public consumption, if you will.
Very nice.
Very cool.
Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and get into this, and we will start by discussing what this game is all about.
What's in a game?
All right, let's start with the setting. What is the setting for Phoenix Dawn Command?
So it's, in some ways I want to say it's a fairly traditional RPG setting. And in a lot of ways it's the tools to build a traditional RPG setting in the way that you want to. So as we noted before, Keith Baker is there. So he was the person that had created Eberron, and there's some serious Eberron feels in that the big thing with the Eberron is that there's the day of mourning, where basically there's this 100-year war. Something happens, and it's key that I say it that way, and a whole continent just kind of disappears. And nobody knows why that happened. Something very similar is here, in that a nebulous bad known as the Dread has taken over a third of the world in the past 3 years. And the Dread encompasses everything that you want it or need it to be. Is it undead? Is it skin changers? There's the chant, which basically takes over the minds of entire areas when they hear it. And then, of course, the flip side is that you are phoenixes, someone that has died a glorious or at least extraordinary death, and you have come back, and you are the last bastion of hope to stop the Dread. There's a lot more lore. You both have the book. You know there's a lot more lore.
Yes.
That's the very basic premise behind it.
That is a very big book too. So
yeah.
So what tools do we need to play this game then?
Your imagination. So the biggest thing.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. So the biggest thing is
friends. Also.
Possibly.
That's the other one. Friends.
Well,
people people willing to play a game with you.
Yes. Not as many as you would think, though. We'll get into that, because I've played this in a lot of different sized groups. But one of the biggest things is you do have to buy Phoenix Dawn Command. It's a box set, because one of the biggest differences with this RPG is that you have cards. In a lot of ways, it's a pseudo deck builder, but we were talking beforehand, one of the biggest things is that it's more like taking spell cards from D&D or other systems and just doing that with your entire character. Because even your class card ends up being like representative of where you are on the map, if you will. So if all three of our characters were lined up next to each other, all three of us would put our character card next to each other. And then you would have the person we're facing or the NPC, and you could lay that card there, and that can give basic representation of where we are in space.
And you do that like with initiative and stuff too, don't you? Like in like combats and stuff, like you move or like you put cards in certain places. Or am I totally? I'm saying these things, and I'm here like
no. It actually gets even both more and less complicated, and it's one of the really interesting things about the game. I have so much knowledge. I never know when to share it.
Feel free whenever.
So initiative is amazing, and that's where it goes back to I've played this with just two people, so myself and someone else, because one of the things about the enemy cards is that it's based on speed, and the speed rating is just how many player turns are taken before the enemy turn happens. So then the base concept would be, let's say that the enemy has a speed of 2. If there were 2 characters,
is that this number down here?
So that's the strength. So on the back facing you, it'll say speed.
Oh, look at that. There's all kinds of info on the back of the card. This is such a great podcast medium, right?
But basically, if it has a speed of 2 characters would go, and then the enemy would go. So if you think of a whole round, if you will, and there were 4 characters, the enemy would end up going twice in that round as you cycle through the 4 characters taking their turns. So it was really, like I said, it was really interesting to play with just 2 people, because fundamentally all the concepts work no matter how you were approaching that.
Yeah.
So all that to say, you really just have to buy the box to play the game, because it has the cards that you need. It has the giant tome. I switched to the PDF because it's a very big book.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. We were talking about that earlier too, that because it all comes in a box and it has cards. I've played this game before, and when I opened up the box, I was like, this book is huge. Because in my brain, it was like, it comes in a box. It must be a board game. It's a box. It has cards. It's a board game. Tokens. And then it's got this like giant book. And then it was like, oh no, RPGs have giant books. That's fine. But like, for some reason, because it was in a box, that meant the book was too big. I don't know. It was like, I couldn't mash those concepts together.
Well, because I always store it. Like, I mean, I want to point over because my closet with games is in there, and that's usually where it goes, up there with the other games. And so, like you said, it's got cards, it's got tokens, and then it has a giant tome. Yeah,
well, I have an RPG shelf, and then I have a board game shelf, and this one was on the board game shelf because it's in a box.
Yep.
So it's star-crossed, and it's in a box. So, what kind of stories and themes is this game meant to explore?
That is probably the toughest question you have for me thus far, because one of the things is, I think we'll go stories, then we'll go themes, and maybe I'll do a good job. So one of the stories is that, again, you have this overwhelming dread. In the past 3 years, it's taken over a third of the known world. And you have these phoenixes who, long ago, they were just prevalent everywhere. Then they basically tried to rule the world with an iron fist, and were basically secluded off to an island. And now there's not as many, but they're trying to come back and help save the world, a world that doesn't necessarily believe they're real anymore because they've been gone for so long. So from that perspective, I think it's, again, you can do some pretty standard RPG stories from that lens, because again, anything you want to be in the dread is in the dread. But what I think is one of the really interesting things, and the reason I love character creation for this, is that the themes you get to explore through that process are really deep about both the character and end up being really deep about you and how you're approaching that, because the whole conceit is you have to have died at least once to start, and you're going to die again to level up. That's the level up mechanic, is death. And it's, how did that death happen? And what do you look like after the trials of that death? So the stories end up being some classic RPG stuff with that element of just deep introspection on who your character is and why they're making the choices that they're making.
So then what do characters actually do in the game then?
They are epic. So that's the other thing. Because you started out as just a normal person in the world. I mean, one of the examples is literally like farmer, soldier, child. Like you could have just been a child, and for whatever reason it was. Some of it makes me, and this is a very thin analogy, but it kind of makes me think of I've connected dots in a weird way in my head. What's the Groundhog Day movie with Tom Cruise?
Tom Cruise.
Where he dies, he's a soldier and he dies, but he gets the alien blood on him.
Gosh.
But they changed the name.
They did change the name. It was
Oh, don't think I won't. I'll do it. Edge of Tomorrow.
Edge of Tomorrow, that's right.
But then they changed the name to something else that really threw me off. But it's that same kind of concept, like but even to the nth degree, because now you can do things that no normal human could even dream of. And as you continue to progress, you become much, much stronger. But the other thing is that you only have 7 chances for that to happen.
Yeah.
So after that seventh death, that character is just gone forever. But it is also the level up mechanic. So then you do need to, and so then you just get farther and farther out to that edge as you get more and more powerful.
Oh, goodness.
So yeah, basically they can do and will do things that no one else could do.
That's very cool.
So our next question is, what is unique about this game? I think the level up mechanic is one of them. And the way that, like, this is one of the first games I played where the like progression mechanic and story tie so neatly together. And it's become a thing that, like, since then I have really, really wanted in games, and been really frustrated when it's just like, you get some XP and you can buy whatever you want with it. Whereas this one is like, they are directly tied to what happens in the game. So I think for me, that's one of the biggest, like, unique pieces. What do you...
No, I wholeheartedly agree, because one of the things, I mean, a very common D&D thing is that I or someone would know, like, this is my thought of what my character progression would be over the next 20 levels. And I've mapped that out in my mind. Maybe I've even mapped it out on D&D Beyond, and I just click back and forth through my levels or things like that. But one of the things about it is that it's based on the death that happens in game. So there's theoretically no real, I mean, you could choose to do something in that moment to gain the death that you're hoping for, but you could also die in a way that you weren't expecting, that would then dictate in a brand new way what you're adding into your character, because these are the things that are actually happening to your character. Right. If you will, your first death is always the most important, because it is what defines you as originally coming back as a phoenix. But then what's happening with you and the other people in play is defining what's happening going forward. So then of course cards.
Right. That's the other thing. It comes in a box. So
yeah, it comes in a box with like it's like pseudo deck building, and I think it gets framed too much that way. Because it is more of just a character sheet broken into cards.
Right. It's just the things that are like you would write on your own sheet, and they've written them down and you grab them. Like,
yeah. And there's a little bit of it does end up having a little bit of a deck building feel, though, because I can see what's in my hand currently. So I can always do something, but there are those moments when I can see that everything's kind of lined up and I can do something, if you will, legendary. And so then everyone can kind of know what everyone else has, and then knowing, oh, okay, so I could just do a regular turn, or I could do this above and beyond turn. We all have the right cards together. And then, like I said, we dip into that legendary territory.
So this is the part where we talk a little bit about the history of the game. I saw that it was kickstarted in 2015 and finally fulfilled in 2016. I was tickled when I saw the Kickstarter, and it said we're going to have a 120-page rule book and all these cards, and it's going to be great. This is a 460-page tome. It's heavy. This thing could knock somebody out. It's wonderful. I love the heft of it. I love the quality of the pages and stuff like that. But Is there any
It's not
other?
120 pages.
It's not 120 pages, no, which is fine. Better to over deliver, right? But is there any other history of the game that you know of, Neal?
So that's one of the biggest things, is that it was the Kickstarter and then it was fulfilled. And then, so I'm realizing now that I played it pretty early, and I had the privilege, thanks to a Catacon. The first time I played it was with Keith Baker.
Oh, nice.
So,
cool. That helped.
Yeah.
It definitely helped learn and immerse and do all of those things. And it was either very shortly or while they were fulfilling, because I can't remember the first year I went, but I know it was the first year I went. From there, the only big thing that's happened is if you go to DriveThruRPG, you can go and you can basically buy an expansion because in the box there are 6 available characters, but you could only play 4 at a time. So if you go to DriveThruRPG, you can buy the cards necessary to be able to play all 6 at one time. And it comes with the extra resource cards as well as a few additional traits. So that's really the only big addition to the game since it's come out. I know that he has wanted to do things, but Two-gether Studios has done a lot of really interesting things. Like they're the ones doing the Adventure Zone board game and things like that. So they've had a lot, certainly a lot.
Yeah, they did Illimat too, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which that thing was gangbusters because it was with the Decemberists and everything like that. As well as, of course, Keith did the Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron. I'm sure he was really helpful with Eberron the Last War. And he's been putting out different really high-end DM skills.
He's a busy dude.
Yeah. So he's got a little bit going on. So I know his thought was at one point to circle back around to it, but I'm not sure where that all sits. So again, the biggest thing would be buying that from DriveThruRPG.
Very cool.
This is the part where we go over some quick terms and concepts that people might want to know as we go through character creation, just so nobody's confused. A couple that Ryan pulled. I'm not going to say we. I'm not even going to pretend I had anything to do with this. Ryan got all of this together.
These are actually mine. So I
nice.
put them in there too.
Well, there you go. Neal handled it. Look, I was busy falling down some stairs. Thank you both for putting all of this together.
Oh, yes.
So let's start with Crucible.
Definitely. So the Crucible is going back to that element of what really makes this setting and everything about this different. So again, the base level concept, we'll just use I'm me, I'm a person in this world. I die. Maybe it's at the hands of the dread. Maybe it's something along those lines. And rather than going to whatever afterlife, I'm chosen as is the potential to be a phoenix. And I go into the Crucible. And the Crucible is basically a place where then I learn and train to become a phoenix. Now, that said, I love the Crucible. It's sometimes difficult to explain because it gets super timey-wimey instantaneously, because the amount of time that happens in the Crucible and the daylit world, as it is called, are not equitable in any way, shape, or form. In that, the example it basically uses is you could have died 300 years ago and you're coming back as a phoenix, but it felt like you spent a couple days in the Crucible.
Oh,
and the reverse could certainly be true. You could have died a couple days ago and it felt like you spent 300 years training in the Crucible.
Oh, interesting.
And so once you're in play, because you are basically an active group in the world, you will come back at the next dawn. But that same conversation about the time that happens in the Crucible while you're training to level up is still true. So you could be coming back at the next dawn. And again, it felt like 1 or 2 seconds. I mean, it's whatever you need it to be for your character, or it could have felt like you spent another 100 years in the Crucible.
Oh, wow.
So, and when you return from the Crucible, and this is my favorite thing, is that what you look like and how you present is everything up to you. One of the things that they usually do kind of suggest is that over time and over those levels, your separation from your humanity does start to stretch out, because you do have all this power that comes from, next term, the flame. So basically it's the flame that you're attached to, going back to the Phoenix analogy and things like that. So you're attached to a specific flame. And I guess also in the Crucible, which is also, I guess, part of character creation, which we'll get to, is that you have a mentor who is also attached to the flame and has done kind of the same things as you, and they're teaching you. And how are you attached to them? Did you know them before? Did you not? So then we'll also use the term sparks maybe at some point. So that, I guess this is another concept for Phoenix that's really interesting, is that you have both health and sparks. So if you lose all of either one of them, you die. And you can choose to spend sparks. Like if you're basically, if you're, let's say, 5 away from something legendary, you could spend 5 sparks, and it could also be your last 5 sparks. And so then you're choosing to complete this legendary action, but then you're dying in the same way.
Oh, interesting.
The school wing rank, I put all those together. So your school is we're just going to use D&D terms to make all of these work. Yeah. Your school is totally your class. Your wing is your group of characters. Your rank is your level. And then marshal is just the DM/GM term. So it's the person running the game is known as the marshal. I feel like, yes. Did that spark any questions? I feel like I went really fast through those.
It seems pretty self-explanatory.
Yep.
I have zero knowledge of the system before this, aside from you die and you come back.
Yes. Which was true. So all the knowledge you had was 100% true.
That's
Look
true.
at that.
So that's all I'm coming into it, and this is all making sense so far. All right. So is there anything else that we need to know before we dive into character creation?
I don't think so. I think we are primed and ready.
Oh,
I'm
fantastic.
so excited.
Shall we make some people then?
Let's make some people.
Let's make some people.
Let's make some people.
I'm so excited for this. I haven't gotten to play this game since like 2017. Because all of my gaming is online, and it is a little difficult to do this one online.
I have thought through that very concept, and I see nothing short of like something really official happening through like an online service, because you just have so much tied to physical aspects.
Yeah, you'd have to almost have something like through Roll20 with the custom cards, or virtual tabletop.
Yeah.
Can do that as well.
Yeah.
Well, and I know that like you offered to cover this game with us back at the very beginning too, and the whole time we were like, how are we going to do that? And then finally Ryan and I now both have the game, and so we're like, now's the time.
Now's the time.
We can do it.
Yep.
All right. Okay, so how do we start? How do we what's our first step?
Tell us what to do, Neal.
I've got a bunch of cards here. I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay, perfect. Step 1 is that we all need to select a school.
Ooh.
So basically, and it's tough. It's tough because it's the most important choice you're about to make. So we're doing it right up front, is because basically you're defining what your first death was. So the other thing is that in each wing, you can't repeat a school.
Okay.
So if I were to choose a Durant, a Phoenix that has died because they aren't tough enough, and the lesson they learn is to be stronger, then that would no longer be a choice for either of you.
Okay.
So
it sounds very powered by the Apocalypse-esque, where you can only have one playbook at a time in play, usually.
Yeah, and the other thing is that basically the one thing I did miss is that you have 3 attributes, which are strength, grace, and intellect. Again, going back to the D&D, intellect is going to take over intelligence and wisdom. Strength is basically going to take over strength, surprise, and constitution. And then grace is taking over basically both physical and social grace. So it's both dexterity and charisma.
That makes sense.
So everyone has grace, and then it's whether or not a class also has strength or intellect, and you can only have 2 of either a strength or intellect. So basically we couldn't all pick strength schools or all pick intellect schools.
Okay.
I'm sorry. The rule book says it. The tome, no. But basically,
the tome hath declared.
Yes. So basically, it's just deciding what kind of death is our initial death.
Okay. So yeah, I see like on the page 130 of the rule book, it says the 6 different schools, 3 of them are strength and grace, 3 of them are intellect and grace.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then just not that it really matters for this conversation, but or for this exercise that we're doing, but often the base game, because if you can, anyone that wants to, you can go download the iconics, which are pre-generated characters. But the 2 that they leave off are the forceful and the elemental. They're a little bit more complicated, so those aren't in the pre-generated character.
Are you willing to give me a quick explanation of what each one is?
Yes.
For our listeners, definitely not for me, because I totally know. For our listeners, Neal, could you explain what each of these schools is?
Yes. So you have the Durant, which ends up, so we can talk from more of a mechanical perspective to kind of help out. So like I said, you're not tough enough. So you end up being kind of the tank of the group. So you're willing to get out there, take more damage. You're harder and tougher to kill, which ends up being a super interesting mechanic, of course, for a game where you need to die to level up. So that's the Durant. The Devoted ends up so die for others, and they learn to strengthen and defend their allies. So the Devoted ends up being a little bit more like the Cleric. So sometimes you can basically take the damage of others and redirect that damage back to the enemies that you're up against. The Forceful die because they either aren't fast enough or can't overcome an obstacle. So they end up being kind of like a ranged archery type is one of the like ranger feel to it is probably the easiest way to say that. Elemental is a phoenix that dies for duty as they burn their very life force to scour away the enemies of the Empire. And that one ends up being, what kind of mage do you want to be? You could be, or you could go the route of more like shamanistic or things like that. But it's more of that elemental kind of spell casting set. Shrouded, that's a rogue. Die due to secrets, either in pursuit of secret knowledge or because a secret was resolved or revealed. Sorry. And then the Bitter, which is the newest school. Phoenixes die in failure. They're angry. So that's more of your barbarian. And they're actually more effective the less health they still have. So again, now you're running it. Now you're like, it's kind of the opposite of the Durant, where you're running it close to the edge, because then you're more powerful based on the health you've already lost.
Wow. Oh, that's really interesting. There's a lot of good choices here.
I agree.
I want to be the Shrouded.
Yes.
That makes sense.
I feel like that's what I played when I played, but again, it was 2017, so I don't totally remember. But
yeah, see, I remember I played a Bitter in that game, and I've played in and ran the intro scenario quite a few times, because that's kind of my go-to. Like if there's a local con, I'll usually sign up to run Phoenix, and then I'll just run that intro one. But I played a Bitter that basically jumped off like a 2 or 3 story banister and just straight down into the like big enemy at the time, killing them and dying at the same time. So it was wonderful. I enjoyed it very much. So I don't have to play the Bitter. I can certainly choose anyone. I am ready.
I'm between the Durant and the Devoted, I think. Probably leaning towards the Devoted.
Of course.
Yep. We're
I'm
all
not shocked.
We're all shocked. I know. I wanted to play to type this time.
That's what I said. I was like, I feel like the last couple times I've like tried not to.
Yeah.
And like played nice things, and I was like, nah, secrets.
Yeah.
Nah. Secrets. You know what? Let's do it. I think because other things are so different, I think that the convenience of all 3 of us playing to type is probably the best choice. I'm going to pick the Bitter.
All right.
Nice.
Does that work out? We have Intellect and Grace. Ryan, what are you? Intellect and Grace?
Intellect and Grace.
And then you're Strength and Grace, right? Cool.
Yep. Yeah, so basically,
look at me knowing the rules.
Yep, I could not have chosen the Elemental. Would have been the one I could not have chosen.
I find this interesting, the way they lay this out. Like They set it up almost like a lot of board games are set up too, where it's like, hey, read this verbatim to your new group of players to set the setting. And then here's another verbatim thing to read for each of the schools. Very
heavy on the potential box text.
Yeah.
Which is, that's a whole conversation, because some people really want it because they feel empowered by it. And I know other people don't like it because they feel beholden to it. My thing is always just like,
you do you.
Yeah. Which
Keith Baker is not coming to your house to check if you're reading the box text.
That'd be super awesome. I'm okay if he wants to.
Yeah, Keith, anytime, Keith, you're more than welcome. Like, please do call me before you come. I'll clean up a little, but
but even having done the Dungeon Masters blog and DMNastics for, I mean, at this point it's going on 6 years. One of the things that I've only come to recently is that some people do view the written word, if you will, as law. And I didn't know. I wasn't raised in RPGs that way, and I just didn't know that that's how some people approached it. So, it is important, like, you both are looking at a lot of different games and seeing it from a lot of different perspectives, but it is important for any designer to know that some people will approach what you've written as straight up law. Like, people will not do certain things inside 5th edition until it's in a WotC published material. They won't touch it. And I'm just like, but why? Like you said, you do you anytime you want.
Because when you sit down to play Monopoly, though, you're like, you read the rules, and those are the, I mean, I guess not Monopoly, everybody has house rules.
And then you turn free parking into a place where you get money.
Right.
Yeah, and then you turn into Shrouded and you stab them.
Right. But like almost any other board game, like if that's where you come from, you look at the rules, and those are the rules. And so like it is a little bit, I think, depending on the way you played or, you know, any of that kind of stuff. I'm watching my brother start trying to GM his first game too. And he's like texting me, and he's like, I don't know. I think that like maybe my GM wasn't a good GM. Like, did you know there's all this stuff you can do? And I was like, buddy, there's a whole world out there. Like, there's a whole world. Like,
yeah. So another place where I will say both are totally right, but I hope that over time everyone ends up leaning more towards just doing exactly what's best for you and best for your table.
Yeah, but I definitely can see like having the comfort of like, I'm not good at improv. And so, you know, even like having that text in front of me that I can kind of paraphrase is hugely helpful to somebody like me, and like eases a lot of my anxiety too. So I think I can see it being good for people. And I know that RPGs, sometimes designers are kind of trying to like bridge that gap too. And this is another one that I think starts to bridge that gap. The new Fiasco edition does that too, where it's a lot of cards and like has a board and it's still played like an RPG, but like is that middle ground. So people who come from board games can be like, oh, I recognize what this is. It has familiar pieces.
Perfect. Okay. Also, I realize there's a thing that you guys don't like doing, but luckily because I've listened to enough of the show, that this helps both of you. We're not going to name our characters until we better understand our characters. Also, the naming of the character is kind of tied to who your character is as a Phoenix. It's very, it makes me think, oh my gosh, how did I never, thank you both. I've never connected these two pieces together. It's totally how Warforged are named. So like often a Warforged will have a name that makes very visual or social sense for the Warforged itself. So like the standard character in the Eberron that you have as an NPC, or no, I just made it. Their name is Maul, and they just have a giant maul that they use to hit people. So like the Durant that is the iconic, that's the pre-generated, is called Shepherd.
That makes sense.
And so that's kind of how you approach the naming convention, is something along those lines. Whereas like, what is the bitter is named Wolf. So we'll eventually get there, but I just wanted to say up front, Don't worry.
Don't worry about it. Okay.
Yeah, naming is really
Don't
easy.
start thinking about it right now.
Yep.
Interesting.
So one of the other things is we might jump back and forth because there's two ways to approach this. One is like what's in the tome. And then there's also the player guide, which you can download for free on Together Studios. I'm not endorsed nor do I work for them, but let us see. So one of the things, okay, never mind. I see where it is. We'll just follow the book. Fine. Whatever. I see where it is. Okay. So we've all decided on our school.
Yep.
So one of the things about the school is that, again, like I said, like I've mentioned before, it's like your character sheet. So you have core cards that just come with the school. So those are the things that you can do no matter what.
So what cards am I looking for?
So on the bottom of the card, it will have the symbol for, so you chose devoted. So it'll have the devoted symbol, which kind of looks like a circle with 6 lines, kind of like a sun coming out of it. And on the very bottom, it will say core. And so then you'll have three cards. Those are your core. So basically one is going to be kind of your skills or your skills / specialties. So like for me as a bidder, one thing that I have is athletics, fear, shadows, and death. And then if I use one of these when I'm doing a skill spread, again, so I am playing cards to complete a skill of some sort. If I can say how it ties back to one of these 4, I can add 5 to that total.
Oh. So I found 3 cards that say core and devoted. Okay. One's a talent, one's a skill specialties, and one's combat style.
Correct.
Okay.
So then when you're looking at that combat style, that also tells you how many cards you can use in that spread. So the basic term, I guess the term that we'll just stumble our way into that I forgot in the beginning is a spread. So it's the cards I'm laying out. And so your 3 sets are attack, defense, or skill. So basically you're attacking, you're defending, or you're trying to complete a skill. And your combat style is the number of cards that you can play in it. So you could play 2 intellect cards for an attack or 2 grace cards for a defense.
Yes.
And you also have a special attribute in there as well.
And there are several talents to like different ranks of talents.
Correct. So for right now, also, if you can go ahead and find both of your rank 1 cards, because you will ultimately need to decide between one of those.
Oh, so many choices. So I found a whole bunch of those as I was going through, and then I just passed them up because I wasn't thinking. Okay, so that's a rank 1. There we go. Interesting. Okay.
So then as you level up those cards that are listed as rank 2, rank 3, rank 4, you have to be that rank to be able to select those.
Okay. Interesting.
So yes, ultimately you'll have your main card, which basically, again, that describes your school as a brief overview and also is used as like a reference point of where your character is on the table. And then you'll have the 3 core cards, and you'll have to choose between one of the 2 rank 1s.
Okay, so I've got, I guess we can list off what we have for our core for the audience that's not familiar with the game. So we kind of know what we're talking about here. So I'm the devoted, and do we want to like go through these in alphabetical order for whatever?
Sure.
Cool. So for combat style, for the devoted, I've got attack, intellect, so I can use 2 cards of intellect for attacking, or defense using grace, 2 cards for that. And my special is on a successful attack, I can transfer a number of wounds equal to half of my rank, rounded up, to your target at the cost of 1 spark per wound. Each wound inflicts 3 brutal damage to your target. You can only do this to living targets. That's really interesting. That's where that spending of the sparks kind of comes in play, right?
Yeah. So part of it is basically you're wounded, and there are scenarios where you can also take wounds from another character.
Yeah.
But then you're using your spark, your energy to transfer those wounds to the person you're fighting.
Nice.
And then brutal damage is also so everyone has health points, and basically it's a certain number of points, and any points spent over that don't then take out another health token are wasted unless you have brutal damage, which basically says that even one into those would take that out.
Ooh.
So then brutal damage is very nice.
It's brutal. One would say.
It is. One would.
One could say that, I guess.
Yeah. So are we each taking our combat style, or
let's go round robin.
Perfect. So I have Reaper's Fury, where for attack I can use strength or grace and then use 2 cards. For defense, I can use grace for 2 cards. And my special is that anytime I suffer a wound, I can draw 1 card. So essentially, the bidder ends up being able to build out a bigger hand to start choosing from pretty quickly.
Oh, nice. What do you got to be there?
My combat style is Cryptic Blade. I can attack with 2 intellect and defend us 3 grace. And then after you successfully defend against an attack, you may become hidden.
Ooh. Very nice. All right. Skill specialties. For the devoted, I've got spiritual guidance. It has diplomacy, healing, spirits, and tradition in bold. I'm assuming those are the kind of the skills that I'm working with here.
Yeah. So then anything when you do the skill spread, as long as there's a justifiable reason why it ties back to any of those 4, you're going to add 5 to that spread.
Nice. Okay. And you may use grace cards in any skill spread involving your specialties. Very cool.
And then I have strength and shadow. And then like I mentioned before, athletics, fear, shadows, and death. And then mine is the additional 5, as well as using strength cards in any skill spread involving my specialties.
Nice.
Mine is Master of Intrigue, Deception, Lore, Observation, and Spycraft. If you use 1 or more of your specialties in a skill spread, add 5 to the total. You may use intellect cards in any skill spread involving your specialties.
So it feels like we're kind of well-rounded there.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
And that, which is one of the benefits of like, you can only choose 1 character from the school. Well, you also just simply can't. You don't have the cards to do it any other way. So, I mean, it's written in there. I mean, you could certainly have, if you were me, you would have more than 1 box. And in theory, you could have larger wings and multiple
mix
from the
and
same.
match.
So, yeah. But essentially, you have to do it that way because you don't have the physical resources to do it any other way.
That makes sense. And finally, our talents. So I've got shared strength. When you make a spread, you can use any 1 card as a grace card, regardless of its actual suit. When a wingmate makes a spread, you may discard a card from your hand, add the value of the card or your rank, whichever is lower, to the spread. And during your turn, you may burn 1 spark to transfer any number of wounds from any adjacent ally to yourself.
Dang.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Ryan, that is your jam.
Yeah.
It is exactly a Ryan card. That's what that is.
Yep. And I have bitter strength, where you can, same deal, where basically I can use any 1 card as a strength card, regardless of the suit. And then when I make an attack spread, I add my current wounds to the total. I don't want you to take them. I want to keep them for a bit.
Okay.
Oh.
I have Hidden Secrets. When you make a spread, you can use any 1 card as an intellect card, regardless of its actual suit. The draw limit is increased by 1 card.
Nice. All right. So now we're on to rank 1 cards for ourselves. And I'm kind of I'm torn, right? Because one of mine's a combat style, the Shining Mirror, and one's a talent, the Devoted Bond. And the Shining Mirror allows me to attack with grace, which sounds like it's good, because it sounds like grace is like something you can have a lot of to utilize.
Yeah, so because everyone will have grace.
Yeah. So that might be good to help out in combat, but the devoted bond is pretty cool because you can put sparks equal to your rank plus the number of phoenixes in your wing onto this card. And then any phoenix in your wing may return one of the committed sparks to you on their turn to regain 2 sparks or draw 2 cards. And in addition, any member of your wing can send the wing a short telepathic message where you'll then burn 1 spark because of that. So it has like massive like group utility there versus I can do better in combat.
I say you choose that one because I'm going to do better in combat.
Okay.
I'm sure of it.
Okay. I'll choose the devoted bond then for my rank 1.
We all know that's what you wanted anyways.
It is.
Ryan's all like, how can I help my teammates? And I'm looking at my cards that are like, you can steal things from your teammates.
I mean, to be fair, the Shiny Mirror is extraordinarily on brand too, because that's one of Sailor Neptune's main weapons is a mirror. Yep. So, I mean, it's there, but I'll forego that for now and go with the devoted bond.
So I will choose the bitter bond for my rank 1 talent. Draw 1 card anytime one of your wingmates suffers 1 or more wounds from an injury. In addition, you always know how many health levels your wingmates have and since when one of them is wounded.
Ooh.
Can you do anything about that or you just know?
I just know.
Okay.
Is there like a distance on that? Or is it just like, if you're hundreds of miles apart, it's like, oh, my friend just got hurt.
Correct.
That's amazing.
Same with the telepathic message, because so one of the other things is that basically there's a travel system that can be used where there's the main fortress basically on the island called Pyre that we are all starting at, and you can basically step through flame and show up somewhere else. But it's a one-way trip so that nothing else can come back through and immediately be in Pyre. So then you can step through, see something and say, I need immediate assistance or everything's fine. And so you could spin that spark, telepathically let us know, or the reverse could be true. We don't have a devoted who took back that. And I immediately sense that whoever went through is wounded. So now I'm using that bond and there's no range on it. Also, it's a concept I find very funny because it's like, I've sent you across the land, but you got to walk back.
Right.
And I get the safety element of it. You don't want anyone to just magically show up and you're in the middle of your fortress. So yeah, you're on foot patrol after that.
I have to decide on my talent.
You've already decided, but go on.
No, I really haven't though, because I have one where it's like, when you're hidden, you may burn 1 spark on your turn to appear next to one of your wingmates, regardless of the distance.
Ooh.
When one of your wingmates dies, you can take one of their skill specialties and use it until they're reborn.
Oh, wow.
Right? So that's pretty cool.
Do you know why?
No.
Because like conceptually, we kind of like ghost haunt you. Like that like while you're dead, and before you're reborn, if you had sparks left over, you can still kind of use them. But then like, let's say you use them all up, then your like creepy ghost version disappears. But like until that moment, you can like, if you had sparks. So yeah, it's basically if your health gets knocked out, but you still had sparks, you're like kind of haunting the area, if you will. And you can give those to other people until you give them all out and then you disappear.
That's amazing.
Until the dawn.
It's so good. Or once during your turn, you may use an environmental element to become hidden. Instead of drawing a card, you may do this immediately at the start of combat as long as you aren't surprised. Anytime you make an attack while you're hidden, you may add an additional card to your attack spread. You know what? I don't know why I said I hadn't made a choice. I'm definitely going with that first one.
Yeah, like the second one's got to be really, really good for this first one.
I don't know what I was thinking.
Yeah. So one of the other things is, because I didn't know where to talk about it until it came up right now. So using the environmental elements, one of the things that you do, which this is a thing that I've just kind of started, or a base concept that I've started using in other games, D&D and the like, there's something called the torch. And basically, like on your turn, you have the card that is referenced as the torch. And there are certain things that are listed there as elements that are in the area. And you can use those and then gain more on your skills and things like that. But they're sort of a one-time use. So if it were like, so one of the intro scenario, there's like this candelabra, basically. So let's say I pick it up and I stab somebody with it because I'm the bidder. Of course I did. Basically, I can get a benefit from that, but now I've used it. So it's no longer available on the torch, but it's like immediately giving everyone something to interact with. So you could have hidden behind it and then use that environmental element to then jump out and stab somebody.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, is it a thing that you can like make them like multiple use? Like you can put tokens on them, or like say that like it has so many uses or something like that? Or am I thinking of something else?
No, you certainly could, because it's really just to set up the environment. Like, so there's somewhere deep within the set of cards are blank ones that you could totally use, like dry erase markers, and you just write it out real quick. And then you can either put check boxes next to it or checks next to it, or letting the characters know that they can have two uses depending on how it works or what element is there.
Gotcha.
So this is something that the marshal would introduce to a scene, like say, oh, there's a piano here. There's this other thing that you can utilize and and whatnot. And
Yes.
I'm halfway to describing a saloon right now.
Yeah. So
there's a piano, there's a bar, there's a couple of bottles of whiskey.
Well, the funniest one I was going to also bring up is that in that intro scenario, when you do step through and you're in the room, one of the things is a big taxidermy to bear that you can use. And so do you push it over? Do you hide behind it? What do you do? And so that, yes, same base level concept is, because you could, exactly like you're saying. So then if we did even want to say that there's a saloon, because there's no reason that there wouldn't be, there's the piano, there's the bar, there's the alcohol, like whatever small or big element that you want to add to that torch and then hand to the players. And it's also representative like of whose turn is currently happening.
That's really interesting. It feels a little like aspects from like Fate or whatever that you're setting up in a scene that can be utilized. That's pretty cool.
Okay, so the other thing that I totally didn't have you do that we should do now is that we also need to pull out 2 traits.
Ooh.
So each school also has 2 level 1 or rank 1 traits, and these would get added into the hand that we make, or into the deck that we make spreads out of. So, I mean, I did some pre-sorting because my box is fairly sorted, so I can totally tell you what yours are if that's helpful.
What am I looking for on does it say trait right on the card?
No. So you're looking for these 2, Ryan. You're looking for...
Oh, Grace and Grace. Okay. See.
Oh, yeah, they were in this other pile, right?
Yeah.
So Ryan, you're looking to choose between Savior and Heart of the Wing. And I actually think you're going to have a difficult choice with that. So there you go. Once you start reading what both of those can do. And the Shrouded has Psychometry and Hidden Motion as the 2 options. And I, as the bidder, have Ruthless and Reckless. And I also will have a hard time deciding.
I'm trying to figure out where these are in... I think I found Heart of the Wing. Okay, so it has a little symbol on the bottom for my school, the Devoted.
Yeah, and you'll be able to, and you'll see that you'll get more of those at other ranks as well.
And it's 1, and it's the one that has there. Okay, because I'm seeing like rank 5. Ooh, rank 7. I just want to read this real quick. Okay, I don't know what that means.
What's that?
I was just reading the rank 7. I'm like, rank 7. That's got to be really good, huh? But I have no idea what it means.
And then the funniest thing is, of course, at rank 7, it would only be that you had a devoted death that you would then choose from.
Oh, these ones are all mixed.
So I have chosen Reckless. When you are targeted by a melee attack, you may discard this card to launch an immediate attack against your opponent and then draw back to your hand limit. If your enemy survives, they can complete their attack and you cannot defend. Oh. But the other interesting concept would also be that if they die, they don't. So then basically, like, as I'm getting attacked, I make a reckless attack. And then if I if I defeat the enemy, then it basically stopped them cold.
Oh, interesting. So it's kind of an interrupt almost, right?
Yep.
To use a Magic the Gathering term.
Yes, but if I don't do that, then they will complete their attack, and I will not use any defense cards. So
Okay, but you still hit them, right? You still hurt them.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
So it's just like I'm opening myself and hoping to finish this, but it might not. But then again, you're the bidder. So what do you care?
What do I care? Yep. Reckless.
Yep. Okay, so what you were saying before is these go into your like potential spread, right?
Because they have the one grace or one strength or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, so this one, Heart of the Wing, it's when you use this card in the spread, draw one card, and each of your wingmates may burn one spark to add 3 to the value of your spread. So it sounds like you're relying on your wing to help you out in your spread.
Yep.
Effectively.
Yeah. So you're going to do something, and then we all decided to burn a spark, and then each of us are adding 3. So then that's where you start to get higher and higher the numbers that you're completing in either a skill, attack, or defense spread.
Okay. And then the savior is use this card in the spread, draw a card, and then I can discard this savior card at any time to add 5 to the value of a wingmate spread. So that sounds like I'm helping somebody out with that. But then I lose the card.
No. Yes. No.
Do you lose the cards if you use them in a spread?
No. So you're going to go through. So you're going to go through the deck, and as you're making spreads, you're putting them into the discard pile. And then once you run out of cards to draw, you shuffle your discard and start back over.
Oh, so you can get it back eventually. Oh, yeah. Cool.
So then that's why it does feels even more like it's just your character sheet, because basically you just keep drawing through that same deck as you play. Interesting.
Okay. I think I'll go with Savior then. To allow me to help the team better. Shocked. That sounds fine. I know.
So surprised.
I know these are like totally uncharacteristic.
I don't like this at all.
I've written one thing down in my notes, and that's my school, and everything else is on a card.
Yeah, and you technically didn't even need to write that down because you have a school card.
I know.
Yeah. Which
I didn't know when I started this.
Yeah. Once you've created the character, it all just exists in that deck. There's no character sheet per se. It's just that deck of cards that you have in your hand.
Yeah. I mean, eventually you could write down a name and if you wanted to, a backstory. But other than that, there's nothing you should need.
Yep.
I don't know which one of these I want to pick. For psychometry, I have... You may discard this card and burn 2 sparks to learn the history and purpose of an object you are touching. When you use this in a successful attack spread, you may burn 2 sparks to make the target vulnerable for a scene. Or hidden motion. When you use this card in a spread, draw 1 card. If you use it in an attack spread while you are hidden, you remain hidden.
Nice.
See, I personally love the psychometry stuff. But that goes back to my Palladium Heroes Unlimited days.
And well, then I'm definitely not picking that one.
Well, no, one of my favorite spells, or not spells, it was a psionic abilities, is Object Read, because it lets you like see scenes from the past and stuff, which was really cool and really helpful whenever mysteries were involved in play.
Yes. So you could do something very similar with that one, where you're either choosing to do it in or out of combat, and so you're learning more about the object. In a lot of ways, it's the identify spell, but you could definitely play it out with more of like you're seeing these images happening, or then you're basically figuring out the exact spot to stab somebody. It's of course the other version of that.
It's a lot of sparks to burn, though. Just like it mentions 2 different times, burning 2 sparks. It's just a lot of sparks. I think I'm going to take that one, though, because it does seem more interesting than just staying hidden. Like, while useful, is not, exciting.
Call to action.
Yeah, like that.
this was my first exposure to Phoenix Dawn Command, and I am really loving it so far. It took me a bit of time to understand how all the cards worked. Like so much searching through my very messy decks.
Yeah.
But I think I picked up on it about halfway through finally. So it definitely less me searching for cards in the next episode, I hope.
Yeah, it's a little bit weird to kind of pick up on when you have all of it in front of you and you're like, I know I can only pick a third of these, but like I have all of them. It is a weird thing to do remotely. I did recently learn though that there are some online possibilities. I think in Tabletop Simulator maybe.
Oh yeah, most likely, yeah. I'm
trying to remember. Somebody recently told me. But anyway,
options are out there.
Yes, they're out there, and I'm very excited because like this was I remember having such a great time playing this game. So I hope everybody enjoys character creation too. Once we get past the card finding.
Exactly, it tightens up well at the very least. We
do better, I promise.
But before we head out for this episode, we do have a few call to action items for you to think about, including a new review or two to read since we finally found a chance to record together again.
Ooh, I'm excited. I forgot about reviews. Our first announcement is to check out the final hours of the You Are The Dungeon Kickstarter. It's such a good game. And they now have physical tarot decks that you can add to your pledge if you would like. If you're listening to this on release day, Monday, June 7th, Tracy is doing a wrap-up stream tonight from 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. Eastern. I don't know what that is in Central Time. Normally we say things in Central Time because that's what we're in.
8 to 2.
It's 8 to 2. There you go. I didn't want to do the math and mess it up. I didn't want to ruin things. But that will be over on their Twitch channel, twitch.tv/theothertracy. They will have surprise guests dropping in and out over the course of the stream to help create the dungeon. Who knows who might show up?
Yeah, I really love how this solo RPG is just able to embrace tons of people just hopping in and throwing in details.
I know.
It's so fun.
It's such a cool game. Like, it's such a cool game. Ugh.
Absolutely. Speaking of cool games, you can also stop by play.chimera.games to check out my game, Chimera, if you enjoyed the last series. Speaking of, Amelia, we never got a chance to talk about it together during the call to action the last series at all because we weren't able to record the cold opens together.
It's true.
Due to scheduling snafus.
It's true. Chimera was amazing, and her brilliance was probably like one of the best characters that I've ever made, but also the worst. I'm going to have to try and find an artist to get some character art.
I don't know.
I always wanted to do art of our characters, but I don't think I have ever wanted art so badly as I do.
Oh my gosh.
Of Danielle Michelle.
It's going to be like one of those pieces of art that's just going to be like, how does this person exist?
They're going to hang it in the Louvre.
I don't exactly. It's going to be old Renaissance
because
style.
she deserves it. Okay.
Yep.
Oh no, honestly, I had so much fun with that series. Like that was, it was phenomenal. I know those episodes were long. I really hope people were able to like hang on there because I know sometimes people are like, 2 hours is too long for an episode. But, oh God, what a good time. What a good time. Oh, it's
so good. I really want to play those characters so bad.
I know.
Oh my goodness. Someday, maybe. What a mess. We'll see. We'll see. Well, next up, remember to check out the Courier's Call Season 2 Kickstarter, which only has a few days left as of the time of this release. You can check the show notes to get right there as well.
Finally, we have a new review to read for you. 2, actually. If you want to leave us a review, we've got links in the show notes to various platforms. This time, I'd like to highlight a couple of reviews from Podcast Addict. Both with 5 stars. This one from Hill Sorcerer. Is it Sorcerer? Is that Sorcerer?
Perhaps Sorcerer. Probably Sorcerer.
Hill Sorcerer. I'm so bad at reading usernames and screen names. I just want to apologize to everyone in advance because it's like
fine.
Words mashed together and I can't do it when the words aren't mashed together. So just, I don't read compound words is what I'm saying. This review says, I like this podcast so very much that I had to figure out how to review shows on Podcast Addict. Great show with friendly, fun, interested hosts who have introduced me to several great new games. Thanks. You're welcome.
Yeah, and thank you for the review. It was lovely seeing those pop up on Podcast Addict, which I check every now and then. Absolutely. We also have a second review from Moosenstein, I believe.
Excellent name.
Excellent. Yep. Moosenstein wrote, Amelia and Ryan are great. They're a good way to learn about how to play in new systems. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I love short reviews that are just like, hey, listen, it's great.
Here's a thing. I like it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And every single review helps. So definitely leave one if you have the chance to, wherever you are able to. We would really love to see those.
Definitely. That is all we have for today. We will be back next week. We are thankful to have all of you here with us. We can't wait to share the rest of character creation with you guys. This is such a good game. I love this game. I want to play more of this game.
I know.
I feel like I say that every time. But until then, take care, everyone. Stay safe. Keep making amazing people. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us for part 1 of this character creation series. We'll be back in part 2, picking up right where we left off.
Character Creation Cast is a production of the One Shot Podcast Network and can be found online at www.charactercreationcast.com. Head to the website to get more information on our hosts, this show, and even our press kit. Character Creation Cast can also be found on Twitter at CreationCast or on our Discord server at discord.charactercreationcast.com. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Bolter, and I can be found on Twitter at Lord Neptune or online at lordneptune.com. Our other host, Amelia Antrim, can be found on Twitter at Ginger Reckoning. Music for this episode is used with a Creative Commons license or with permission from the podcast they originated from. Further information can be found within the show notes. Our main theme music is Hero Remix by Steve Combs and is used with a Creative Commons license. This podcast is owned by us under Creative Commons. This episode was edited by Ryan Bolter. Further information for the game systems used and today's guests can be found in the show notes. If you'd like to leave us a rating or review, we have links to various review platforms out there, including Apple Podcasts, in our show notes. Also, check the show notes for links to our other projects. Thanks for joining us, and remember, we find that the best part of any role-playing game is character creation. So go out there and create some amazing people. We will see you next time.
Now we gotta read some show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs.
Show blurbs. Character Creation Cast is hosted by the One Shot Podcast Network. If you enjoyed our show, visit oneshotpodcast.com, where you'll find other great shows like Asians Represent.
Asians Represent celebrates Asian creators and diversity in the gaming community. Join hosts Agatha Chang and Daniel Kwan as they discuss gaming, genre, and representation with their guests, and occasionally argue with each other to the sound of Agatha's beloved air horn app.